Hey guys, what's up? Hope everybody's having a good day and welcome back here to the channel. And guys, I am so excited to do today's video because I've been ready to do this video for a couple months now. For the past year, I've been working with Cumberland Pro Lures to design my newest jig, which is the Blaukat Throwback football head jig. We're going to talk about that today. A lot of you guys have been using my other jigs that I designed with Cumberland Pro Lures, the Blaukat Throwback jig and the Blaukat Finesse jig. We have included the football head jig in today's lineup here. And I'm going to talk about the jig today, guys, give you guys some good tips and advice on how to fish it. I'm going to talk about the colors I like and talk about the trailers I use. So this is going to be a really good football head tutorial for today's video. So I hope you guys enjoy it here. I'm also, guys, a couple quick things before we get started. Just a quick reminder, guys, if you want the best beef jerky on the planet, the best boat food on the planet, guys, check out the Bridgeford beef jerky here. This is the Bridgeford Sweet Baby Ray beef jerky that they've had forever. Guys, the quality of meat in this product is second to none. I have seen them make it at the factory. It's like the meat that they use for this jerky, you could use it for your Sunday best dinner. It's incredible quality here. The most awesome company in the world. You can get the Bridgeford beef jerky at any Walmart checkout aisle anywhere in the country, along with a lot of grocery stores. So if you guys are looking for some really good boat food, looking to support a company that's great to the sport of bass fishing, definitely check out the Bridgeford products there. And also, guys, we will be talking about my new Blaukat football head, throwback football head jig. I will have these in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video. We've got 7 different colors. We've got 2 different sizes on them. I'll be talking about that in today's video. So if you guys are wanting to get some of my the new football head jig, they're probably going to sell out real quick. So I'll have the Tackle Warehouse link to this jig in this video description if you guys would like to order some. Okay, guys, we've been working on this a long time. And one of the things that's great about working with Cumberland Pro Lures, the attention to detail that they have there is second to none. They don't take any type of shortcuts. Everything is quality. Everything is done right. The product needs to be perfect. And if you guys have used my throwback jig and my Finesse jig, you know the quality of that. So let me talk a little bit about the construction here. Now, first of all, this is hand-tied living rubber skirt. And guys, the hand-tied living rubber skirt, I think this is the only football head jig even available with a hand-tied living rubber skirt. The breathing action that you get with living rubber cannot be duplicated with silicone. That is the advantage of that living rubber. And it's got a hand-tied thread, skirt on it, which makes the skirt, see how it bellows out there? Now, most other manufacturers, when they tie a jig, they have a silicone skirt because it's cheaper to make, cheaper to buy, and then they have that collar on there that they just slip up over there. The collar rots out after about a year, and your skirt falls off. And it's just, they do that because it's cheaper to produce. So the quality of the hand-tied living rubber is second to none, with my Blaukat, the throwback football head jig. Another thing with it is the look that living rubber has in the water, guys. Living rubber has a glow in the water. Regardless of the color that you use on the jig, it glows because silicone is sort of translucent and it has a different look to it. But that's one of the reasons the bigger fish always bite a living rubber skirt is because how it looks in the water. So the skirt and the material and how it's tied, second to none. Now, we worked a long time on this hook, guys. Nice stiff 4/0 hook. I got it the exact length that I want. This is the perfect length as far as, to get the bait to the profile size I wanted and get good hookups on it. It's got a lighter, perfect weed guard for that offshore fishing with a football head jig. It's got a really good keeper on here. So it's got 2 different prongs, so you're not gonna lose your trailer. Once you put it on there, it's gonna stay. So every component of this jig, including the line tie, you notice it's a straight line tie here. Now, on my other jigs, my throwback jig and my Finesse jig, we have an offset line tie, which is designed for fishing through heavy cover. This is designed to be fished around rock and gravel and boulders and that type of stuff. And the straight line tie allows it to crawl over those boulders better, along with the football head design here. So that's the component of the jig. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the trailers that I like with it and how I trim it up a little bit, and then we'll talk about the areas that you're fishing in. There's basically only 2 football head jig trailers that I use that we're gonna talk about. I use the Zoom Z-Craw here, and I use a Zoom Brush Hog. I'm gonna show you guys how I modify this. A lot of people like any type of a curly tail trailer. I mean, like the Rage Cross. Curly tail trailers are great, but these are the two that I prefer in my own fishing, you know, for the football head jigs. So I'm gonna show you guys how I like to modify it and how I like to rig it up a little bit. So let's take one of the brown purple ones here, I'll show you that. Okay, first of all, when I'm fishing a football head jig, I want a little bit of a compact profile. I don't want a big honking profile on a football head jig. Most of the time I want to keep it around 4 inches long. So on the Z-Craw, you know, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna cut off probably about, I'm gonna guess 3/4 of an inch, just like that on the Z-Craw. And then I'm going to put the trailer on before I do the jig skirt modification on it. Now, one of the things that's really critical is when you put your trailer on, you really need to take the time and get it on there slow, because not only do you have to get it on perfectly straight, but you got to get it on you got to put it on the perfect amount to make it lay straight. So sometimes that's a little bit of a learning curve. So just take your time, come straight through the bait as much as possible. If you're like me, you have to wear glasses. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. And you want to come in just far enough to where when you push it up on the keeper right there, everything is perfectly straight. About like that, perfectly straight, like that. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is you don't want uniformity. See how uniform that is like that? That doesn't look natural. Now, we've purposely made the skirts on the football head jig a little bit longer so you can put different type of trailers and you can trim it to your needs. So what I do is take a pair of scissors and I'm gonna create some different lengths on it. I'm gonna take some of the length off. When I cut it, I'm cutting it like at a 45-degree angle around the jig there. And I don't cut them all the same. I want some uneven strands in the skirt, and I wanna make it where none of the skirt impedes the action of the tail there. So I want to make it sort of like crazy looking and a little bit gnarly looking. So I'll even cut some short ones off to have a couple that sort of stick out. I'll show you the look that I'm after here. See that one right there, how that one sticks out like that? This is what I want. So if you look at it now, it's a lot more imperfect. Now, doesn't that look better? That looks like something that's a little bit more live than just like a super uniform. So trimming the skirt is critical to get it look right, and that's exactly how I do it. This one right here is pretty much ready to fish. And then the next thing I do, one final thing in there, see the weed guard? I always trim the weed guard at an angle. Now, I used to want to make these pre-trimmed, but they're hard to pre-trim exactly right, and everybody may or may not want it. So what I like to do is I'll lay my scissors parallel to the top of the hook, and I just want to cut that top part off there so where it's a little bit like that. And that not only makes it blend in more, but it just gives you a little bit more of a bite penetration. And I also sometimes I'll spread that guard out a little bit, widen it up just a little bit. That gives you a little bit better hook set. So that's ready to fish like that. That's one of them. Now the second one is the brush hog. The brush hog, I'll talk a little bit about when I use each one of those, but let me show you how I do the brush hog here. First of all, I'm gonna cut the brush hog off about right in between the legs right here. So I'm gonna cut it off like that, pull the legs off. And then the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come in with the brush hog and I'm gonna cut 2 or 3 slices in the side of the brush hog there. And to me, this just makes it look a little better. I like the way it looks. It's sort of a confidence thing to me. So I've got the legs cut a little bit like that where you can get some separation in them. I'll do that on both sides. And there is a situation that I use the brush hog over the other one. Put it up like that. Put it on the brown and orange. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit about colors here and when I use what in just 1 second here. Okay, see the brush hog, it's a little bit larger profile there. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do the same thing with my trimming it up a little bit. Trimming it is so critical, guys. You don't ever wanna use a jig that is just uniform. You get so many more bites with it. And like I said, every time you trim it, it looks different. There's no uniformity. So you can see how that's sort of crazy looking. I can promise you guys that will get a lot more bites like that. And then I do, when I'm fishing a football head jig, most of the time I always put, you know, either some chartreuse or some orange dye on the tail there. I'll show you here. I just really like the little bit of color that gives to it. My favorite dye is the spray dye, but that's fine. Just a little bit of color on the tail, just sort of fishy looking bait right there for sure. Okay, so that's the setup here. Now, before we get into this, two different sizes of jigs here. This is the 3/4 ounce, this is the 1/2 ounce. We're gonna talk a little bit about, you know, when you wanna use each size and the tackle and everything, but let's talk a little bit about where you wanna fish it and how you determine the size. Okay, we purposely, some football head jigs come in a lot of different sizes, like, you know, down to 3/16 or 1/4 ounce, you know, 5/8 ounce, you know, 3/8 ounce. You really only need two sizes. That's why we only offer a 3/4 ounce and a 1/2 ounce. Now, the 3/4 ounce is probably my preference because you can cover a lot of water with it. So I'll use the 3/4 ounce anytime that I'm fishing water depths over about 10 foot, or if it's really windy. The 3/4 ounce side is going to be really good when you're probing sort of that 10 to 25 foot zone, which is really the zone I like to fish for a football head jig a lot. On a day where you got 15 or 20 mile an hour wind, you know, you can really cast it a long way and get it down there quick. And if the water depth where I'm fishing is less than 10 feet deep, or if it's extremely snaggy, like the rocks are bigger, I'll go to a 1/2 ounce size, because the 1/2 ounce size will come over those rocks and not get hung up as bad as the 3/4 ounce. But that's about the only two sizes that I use. On both setups, I use 15-pound test Seagarn Vizex line on both ones. And one of the things that I have learned a little bit about it is I learned from one of the greatest football head jig anglers of all time, which was a co-angler named Frank Divis. And Frank, he practiced with me for several years on the tournaments, and he won, I think, 2 FLW tournaments as a co-angler. He's one of the all-time leading money winners on the co-angler side at FLW, and that's all Frank fished. It didn't matter where we were, Frank fished a football head jig out of the back of the boat all the time. And he would just throw it straight behind the boat, and he'd drag it behind the boat. And he wound up doing really, really good. So let me show you one way to work the football head jig that you're gonna get a lot of bites on it that Frank showed me. First of all, Frank would cast it out there, you know, and just drag it behind the boat. But what he would do, he would hold his rod at like a, you know, parallel to the water like that, and he'd drag it like that. Excuse me, he'd drag it like this. And then once in a while, he would snap it hard like that. You can watch my wrist, he'd go boom, boom, just like that. So he'd drag it for maybe, you know, 30 or 40 feet, you know, behind the boat. I'd be working down the bank, and he'd just throw straight out the bank, and he'd go boom, boom, like that. And that's usually when he got the bite. And he told me one of the things that was his theory was that these bass would sit down there and they'd follow that football head jig as it's like scooting along the bottom, and they just follow the thing. They're swimming around right underneath, or just right, you know, behind it. And then when you pop it a couple times like that, that's when they actually ate the thing. So I learned a lot of different, you know, tricks about that with him. Colors of football head jigs, you can't go wrong with any type of brown or green. You know, brown and purple, green and purple, straight brown, probably some of the best. I really like the green or brown and purple, or the straight brown. Probably I use straight brown about as much as anything. And then, like I said, I'll mix my trailers up with a green pumpkin or a watermelon, you know, and I go back and forth on the dyes between orange and yellow. So you sort of have to just mix it up to, you know, the sunlight conditions and the water visibility. A football head jig will work in a wide range of conditions. It works in water visibility between anything over about 1.5 feet of visibility. Probably my favorite football head jig water clarity would be, give me about 2.5 to 4 foot of visibility. That's like the perfect zone for me. That's gonna put those fish in about, you know, that 10 to 20 foot range. Okay, now where you wanna fish a football head jig, obviously points and ledges are the two best places. You can't go wrong running points, running drop-offs, running ledges. It's a hard structure bait, and you can cover a lot of deep water in a hurry. But one of the things that I learned from Frank is that you can throw it anywhere. If I was throwing like a wiggle wart down a bank, Frank would throw that football head jig and on the same places I'd crank a wiggle wart. There was literally no places that he wouldn't fish it. I've seen him fish it in Florida, down riprap banks in Florida, and everywhere in between. So when you're fishing a football head jig, throw it anywhere. I mean, anywhere that you think there's a bass, they're going to bite a football head jig. My preference for a football head jig is basically fishing flatter points. Not super flat, but I want a flatter slope point with small rock on it. That's probably my favorite way to fish it, but I have caught them on a lot of different type of structures there. So, and also the rod, guys, I'm usually using a 7'2" that Mega Bass Perfect pitch. It's the medium heavy, and I've got the Cast King ALTI bait cast reel on it, high speed reel, 7-to-1, something like that. But anyway, guys, a few football head jig tips. Like I said, my Tackle Warehouse link is in the description for the new Blaukat football head jig. Might want to get you some before they run out there, and hope you guys like them. Talk later.